use that wisdom and that knowledge to work with the young people in our community. As you might have picked up by now, I'm really high on the youth and the young people in our community because times are difficult right now, negative influences, but we are a strong people, and we have to be able to work together with our brothers and sisters from other communities and all segments of life to be able to show the young people, the young adults, that we're there for them, that you're there for them, and they will come and see you. It's events like this that make those things happen. Never turn anybody away.
Us young people were byproducts of the damaging effects that have happened at the residential schools. I myself and so many others that I know didn't get the opportunity or the privilege to learn our language because at that particular time, our language was banished. We did not want to speak our language. Government, churches did whatever they could to disrupt us, to destroy us, but we're still here today. And it's because of the great work that a lot of people have done, such as our elders and such as our spiritual teachers, to preserve our culture, to preserve our language, to preserve our identity of who we are as Cree people.
The statistics, violence in the workplace. 17% of the ones that are reported are physical assault or sexual assault or robbery in the workplace. There are 356,000 incidents of violence in 1 year, and 71% of that is physical violence. Physical violence, harassment, and bullying, all of that affects the emotional and physical injury effects production and ability to function. So it ends up costing the work because of all that going on. So what is workplace violence? Any physical or verbal assault, a threat to commit physical violence, any threatening behavior, sexual assault, stalking. That's what's defined as workplace violence. And then, I was just seeing these websites that are not necessarily geared to us in our communities, and saying that there's 4 types of workplace violence. One is a random act of violence, where there's no connection to the business or any personal relationship, and then there's violence that happens. And another type is where it's related to the business. A client or, they're related through business is how the violence happens. And then another type is that the workers themselves, one is the victim and one is the perpetrator. And that's a violence occurring within that. And then the other one is the domestic, where it doesn't necessarily happen on the workplace, but it happens in the home, and then that energy is brought to the workplace, and that affects the performance. And then one of the symptoms of PTSD is marginalizing voices. You don't like hearing somebody's particular point of view. So, and you're in a position to kind of block them out or shut them out or not bother listening to them. So unpopular voices are marginalized, and creating an environment that doesn't invite all these voices, and then creating a fear of speaking out. And then so that makes your pool small, a small pool of information or a small pool of solutions. And then you're creating fear and control which is violent. And it's a continuing of a violent process, and it doesn't really make way for a healthy kind of creative atmosphere. And then we have these voices inside of us when we're from that experience, when we've got this PTSD rolling around. There's this message inside of oppression. For example, I was talking about being constantly told being stupid and ugly and no good for nothing, and so that kind of blocks a confidence, and that's one of the symptoms of PTSD, of kind of staying away from people and situations that where you got your PTSD in the first place, or affects your PTSD, and diminishing your view of who you are, and isolating yourself. So, and these messages are messages of oppression, and then we allow them to shape what we believe. All these things that we've been hearing from colonialism and racism and sexism and all of this stuff is forming a belief system. And very often we're not even conscious of that. And so we're reacting from a place that's been done to us, rather than from that place inside where we really should be coming from, and not being conscious of it. And then we become our own oppressors, because we take that belief system and we keep ourselves in a certain spot. Don't allow ourselves to move out of it. And that's how we react to other people very often. And then the fifth one here, admiration of the problem, where we focus on the size of the problem and become overwhelmed and stuck. And then the conversations revolve around the problem rather than the solution. Number 6, complaining and gossiping. Who's ever heard of that? You know, can't ask for what you need in a healthy manner. Gossip rather than working things out with each other. And then number 7, revenge, where power is abused, and then people want to revenge that, and sabotage and gossip and building alliances with each other, and shunning and blaming, and taking power where we can get it. So, you know, these are some of the ways that lateral violence gets us to react and behave, right? And that's all connected to PTSD. Those are symptoms of PTSD. And they also have a very limited understanding of who we are. Now they're starting to get a little bit of a whiff with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the recommendations. There's a lot of Canadians that are quite surprised. They never knew anything about it. And I really, really commend those people and those families that found the courage to tell the truth of what happened in those schools. And some stories are so horrible, you don't even want to repeat them. You know, they're so bad, and people lived through them. And generations in families went to those schools and suffered that. And that's another thing about this horrible history and experience that we've come through, is that it's created a lot of imbalance. There's a lot of imbalance in our world, mentally, physically, spiritually, soulfully, all of those things. Because to have a healthy soul and have a healthy spirit, you got to have those healthy foundations. And we're just now going there and getting those things back. And we have this experience that tells us in no uncertain terms what's important, because it was all those things that were taken away from us that we have to go back and get now, on how you can deal with violence in the workplace. One of them is respecting personal space. Yeah, and to be empathetic, and don't be judging, just to hear, let them say, let them express what it is that they're trying to get off their chest, is the focus on the feelings. Facts are important, yes, but that's an intellectual thing, right? And what's happening in an emotional frenzy is it's about the energy, it's about the emotion, it's about the heart. Set limits. If a person's behavior is belligerent, defensive, or disruptive, just be really clear and simple. Offer concise and respectful choices. And then allow quiet. And let them be quiet. Let the silence give them time to think and think things through. And give them time to make the decisions that they need to make, because they're under stress. Every 15 minutes, a woman is being assaulted in Canada. And one is murdered every 5 days at the hands of a lover, a spouse, or a stalker. And a disproportionate number of these women are Indigenous women and their children. And there's statistics here about domestic abuse and the effects of violence against women. There's a high cost, socially and economically. Women will experience depression, PTSD, sleep difficulties, eating disorders, emotional distress and suicide. Twice as likely to experience depression and problem drinking, drug abuse, and health effects include headaches, back pain, abdominal pain, fibromyalgia, gastrointestinal disorders, limited mobility, poor overall health. These are the effects of violence against women, and the effects on the children who witness the violence, behavior, and emotional disturbance, and may perpetuate or experience violence in later life, and higher rates of infant and child mortality and morbidity, disease, malnutrition, social and economic costs. Women experience isolation, inability to work, loss of wages, loss of participation in regular activities, and limited ability to care for themselves and their children. A lasting change. And so there needs to be legislation to address the discrimination against women and to promote gender equality, to support women and move toward peaceful cultural norms. That we've been carrying an enormous burden. And our sisters of all the different cultures, they too have a hard time accepting that. At the same time as our children were being put in residential schools and being trained to think nothing of themselves, that they had no value, and that their parents and grandparents and their ways were of the devil and to be avoided, and all of that. And all that stuff is out in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations. All that is true. It's out there. That's known now. Whereas before, it was quiet and it was shameful and it was a burden. But now, it's like a mask that can be taken off and say, that is true. That's what we've been dealing with. And that's where a lot of sickness is coming from. And this violence that's being perpetrated, it's coming from that dark place. And we know it exists, and we know how long it's been coming and how long it's been building. At the same time, and I was using the residential schools as an example, is the same time as we've been putting through generation after generation after generation conditioned to believe that we're nothing. And all of these things could be done to us, and we had nothing to say about it. At the same time, their people were being trained that we're nothing, and that we have no value, and we have no voice, and we have no right to any voice. So we got this situation where we have to undo it, but we have to honor ourselves. We are a gift of creation. So we have to remember our culture is where the power is and the strength is and where the nurturing is. And that's where the warriors are. That's where the seekers are. That's how we're going to find our missing. That's how we're going to protect our communities.
In family violence, when we talk about family violence, there's a few different areas that are very, very critical. There's coercion and threats. There's intimidation. There's emotional abuse. There's denying, minimizing, and blaming. We say we love each other. We do. We say we love each other, but it doesn't come out in our actions. Suicide is not the answer. I'll tell you something. If we don't deal with our issues, we'll never deal with anybody else's issues. And I'll tell you something. In a lot of our communities, we need to be able to bring some of those things out of the closet. There's a lot of things in the closet that have been hurting people, but we don't want to talk about that, right? Let's keep that quiet. And as a result, what happens to our people? More pain, more suffering, more suicide, and more violence. Got to stop. Problem number 1. There are people teaching healing who are not healed. Top way? Problem number 2. Stupidity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you know you're not going to get a different result, stop doing it. Wake up. Hello. This is not tough, people. Number 3, problem number 3, who are people listening to? Where are their teachings and thoughts being transported from? I have decided to think healthy, to speak healthy, and to live healthy. I'm telling you something. If you think healthy, you're going to speak healthy. If you think negative, you're not going to speak healthy. But if you think healthy, you're going to speak healthy. And from your speech is going to start to build your actions. We got to believe that goodness happens in our lives, that we are good people. Start to believe it. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Don't waste it. Use it to bring hope to others. Don't think you can't be a vessel of hope. You can be a vessel of hope. You can be a person that can encourage, empower, and lift somebody's life. Find safe zones for release. I'll tell you something. We need to find safe zones for relief. A lot of communities don't have safe zones. There's nobody to talk to. But let me tell you, every school, you might want to incorporate this. Every school should have a Cookum's office. Yeah. When you're going through something, go to Cookum. Establishing friendships. Don't be afraid to get a friend. Find a friend. Be a friend. Connecting to something. Find something to connect to. And it don't mean someone, it means something. How many are good at a hobby? Any of you good at a hobby? That's something to connect to. Some can connect to nature. Some can connect to boating or sports. Connect. Find something to connect to. Spiritually, Do not be afraid to talk to your friends. Listen to their feelings. Make sure they know how important they are to you. Don't believe you can keep them from hurting themselves on your own. Preventing suicide is going to require help. You need to ask for help. Number 3, make no deals. You can't make a deal, because if you tell somebody, listen, tell me what's going on, I won't tell nobody. Guess what it does? 2 things. Number 1, it ties your hand. Now, and if number 2, if you do tell somebody, guess what happens? They'll never trust you again. Listen to them. Listen to what's coming out of their mouth. Don't get preoccupied with something else. Listen to them. Suicide has affected all of us. We need to stop the threat through awareness and prevention.
You are the difference. Like everywhere I go, I know I'm the difference, because that's what I've been chosen to do. My spirit is strong. I don't back down. I'm not afraid. I'm fearless. I'm motivated. And I'm in love with all of you. I'm in love with the people. I'm in love with just everything, the universe, God, and everything. I am so grateful. Thank you for letting me.
ABCs of bullying. A, avoid. So I see the bully coming down the hallway, I'll go into a classroom. Even if it's not my classroom, I'll go into a classroom, let the bully go by, go back out, and go about my walk. B, bargain. Most bullies is because they want something from you. You have money, you have lunch, give them your money, give them your lunch, and move on. C, control. Control the situation. If you can sit there and talk to the bully and talk him down and reason with them, best thing to do. Don't engage with him. That's what they want. So don't even go there. So those are the ABCs of bullying. And yes, I think this community, like all Native communities, should have a martial art program in there. It would get the kids off the street, not hanging around in the parks, not hanging around dépanneurs, looking for free handouts or whatever the case may be. It would give them an opportunity for a place to come and feel safe.